There's a new bombshell report out from the Washington Post showing how COVID-19 relief money passed by the CARES Act that was meant for medical supplies was instead given to defense contractors for reasons that were not involved with medical supplies. So now, this was the $1 billion fund that Congress gave Pentagon back in March as part of the CARES Act. So they gave that $1 billion in order to build up the country's medical supplies, as we had a shortage of equipment, N95 masks and things like that. So now this medical equipment money, money that was meant for medical equipment, was mostly funneled, unfortunately, to defense contractors in order to make things like engine parts for jets, body armor, and dress uniforms. None of those things are medical supplies. None of those things. So now, the CARES Act gave the Pentagon money to prevent, prepare, and respond to coronavirus. Now, do any of those things do anything to help do any of that for coronavirus? No. But as usual, there's a high level of corruption in our government. And so, look at that. They got all this money that went to corporations. And so let me give you the details. According to the Post, the $1 billion fund is just a fraction of the $3 trillion in emergency spending that Congress had approved earlier this year to deal with the pandemic. But that money, in some cases, was redirected to firms that were not originally targeted for assistance. For example, $183 million was afforded to firms, including Rolls-Royce and ArcelorMittal, to maintain the shipbuilding industry. Tens of millions of dollars for a satellite, drone, and space surveillance technology. $80 million to a Kansas aircraft parts business suffering from the Boeing 737 MAX grounding and the global slowdown in air travel, and $2 million for a domestic manufacturer of Army dress uniform fabric. More than a third of the awards were for less than $5 million and went to small firms for things that were not related to anything COVID-19. Now, the Department of Defense says, well, we had to spend that money because we had a shortfall of those things. But wait a minute. How do you have a shortfall when you received $686 billion in 2019 as part of your fiscal year? You realize the United States gives more money to the military than the next 6 countries in the world combined. What do you mean there's a shortfall? How the fuck do you have a shortfall when you get that much money? You get more money than pretty much any other part of the government going to quote-unquote defense. Garbage. Look, here's the thing. That money does not go to the troops, right? E1s make an average of $19,000 a year. There are numerous stories of, on-duty troops that have to use food stamps at the commissary because they don't make enough money. Where's all that money going then? Wealthy defense contractors. It goes right into their pocket. And that's what happens. And so major defense contractors such as Lockheed Martin, General Dynamics, and Northrop Grumman had received this money despite being financially healthy during the pandemic, even though there is some pandemic-related disruption. They've also done so well that they have continued to pay stock dividends to investors. If you are a company that is struggling, you do not give dividends to investors. Do you know that tens of thousands of businesses have shut down for good? They're not coming back. These are small businesses. These are hearts of the community. And that's as a result of the administration not taking enough action to support them through the pandemic. They had the Paycheck Protection Act, right? But that was critically underfunded for all the businesses. And they were not prepared and properly funded enough to handle all the business closures. And yet, Lockheed Martin gets millions of dollars in funding that they don't need. And yes, oh yes, it gets worse. Some defense contractors received the Pentagon money even though they had already dipped into another pot of bailout funding, the aforementioned Paycheck Protection Program. So they're double dipping. Finally, the real kicker. As Congress debates whether to pass another stimulus package, The Pentagon and defense contractors have called for an additional $11 billion. If you're looking for the real welfare queens, I believe that we have found them. These companies who are profitable, paying dividends, and are doing generally pretty good, and have double dipped in federal funding, are now sticking their hands out and saying, give me more. I need more money. I need more money. This is all while 40 million people are out of work. You have a rent apocalypse. People that are being evicted in record numbers. You have private companies calling themselves the Uber of evictions, going around and helping landlords evict people for not being able to pay their rent. Are you serious? Are you serious? And look, you have unemployment benefits that ran out July 31st. And you have some states, yes, that are still doing expanded unemployment benefits, but at a much, much reduced level, $300. And there are some people that did not get a $1,200 check, but thank God Northrop Grumman can pay their goddamn investors. It's the corruption. It's the corruption. And it's right in your face. These guys are laughing at us all the way to the bank, which, by the way, also got bailed out in the trillions of dollars by the Fed. That's your money, by the way. Your money. Your tax money that didn't go to you when you needed it. It went to these corporations. It went to Northrop Grumman, right? It went to General Electric. It went to all these giant corporations and didn't help you at all. And now, defense industry groups are saying that the DoD awards are, quote, crucial. And they point to companies that sell aircraft parts for both military and commercial jets who have been financially impacted by COVID-19. Look, that part is true. Had the airlines been just devastated by this? Yeah, they have. Is it our job to continue bailing them out? No, it's not. Look, we already give the Pentagon billions of dollars a year, hundreds of billions of dollars a year. Why can't they dip into that? Why can't they use that at all? I understand that you can't lose your supply chains, but they already have so much money. And again, I want to point out that this money is not being used to help the survival of a lot of these companies, but it goes to companies that are well off, like GE Aviation, a subsidiary of General Electric, which received 2 awards worth $75 million alone in June. And Rolls-Royce, a subsidiary, received $22 million to upgrade their Mississippi plant. Did they really need that money? Absolutely not. And again, this is supposed to be for making masks, gloves, ventilators, and other equipment, PPE. This was not meant to make personal upgrades to your plant to help your bottom line. Look, this is what happens. This is what happens when the government is captured by special interests. This is what happens when your government is corrupt. We have to be the most corrupt country on the planet. It's insane. It's right in your face. I mean, this is why we have to get the money out. Okay, politicians allow this corruption to happen. They allowed this to happen because they benefit from this corruption. And now, as a result of this, a couple of Democrats have decided to launch an inquiry, an investigation into this. I wonder what's going to happen. We have these companies. We also had the banks, right, that have been caught money laundering for terrorist groups. We also had the Panama Papers. What came of all of those things? Absolutely nothing. Nothing happened. Why? Because we are a corrupt country. 100%. And so what are we supposed to do? Us regular citizens that are caught up in this web of corruption, right? Well, we got to fight back. How do we do that? We elect uncorrupted politicians. They don't take corporate money, right? And we got to fight to get the money out. Now that involves going to the streets. It involves going to the polls. It involves, going to basically doing everything, every kind of, citizen action that we can to try to get people to not take corporate money and to eliminate that corporate money from our political system. It's going to take a long time, and it's going to be a very, very long, very difficult fight. But could you imagine the result? Even if we don't see it in our lifetime, even if we fight for years, decades to get the money out of politics, could you imagine a world where your representatives actually represent you and actually fight for you instead of letting all this money go to these fantastically rich corporations? It can become a reality one day, but only if we were willing to put in the time and the effort to fight. I'm willing. Are you?